About 3,000 U.S. troops have arrived in Eastern Europe, meant to send a message of NATO's solidarity as the Russian military continues its buildup along Ukraine's border. Nearly 1,000 American troops were moved from Germany to Romania today, according to the Pentagon. Those soldiers supplement nearly 1,700 members of the 82nd Airborne Division. They arrived in Poland from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, in recent days. Meanwhile, after Monday's meeting at the White House between President Joe Biden and the new German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, the two leaders said they are unified against Russian aggression. However, if Russia further invades Ukraine, Biden promised to kill the planned Nord Stream 2 pipeline, a gas pipeline which would run under the Baltic Sea and deliver Russian natural gas to Germany. Russia currently supplies 60% of Germany's energy, but Scholz did not mention the pipeline in his remarks.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
As I already said, we are acting together. We are absolutely united, and we will not taking different steps. We will do the same steps, and they will be very, very hard to Russia, and they should understand.
Joining us now from Kiev, capital of Ukraine, is Terrell Jermaine Starr. Terrell, first, tell us, how are people on the ground feeling about the impending Russian invasion?
Well, it's definitely raised a number of alarms. People are calling whoever they know, who they think is connected, and asking how real this is, how much of the threat is really here. So anytime people ask me this question, is a mixture. Yes, there's obviously alarm, but there are also people who are saying that, well, we're used to this as imminent and as terrifying as it sounds to many folks in America. People here are definitely going about their lives. They're making, many people are making evacuation precautions. There are civilian military units out there that are bracing for the worst. There's going to be a training that's taking place February 10th through 20th. Major drills around the country. And so people are taking it seriously, but at the same time, this is something that, like I said, people are very much used to, unfortunately.
So much of the conversation here in the United States is focusing on the diplomacy between the United States and European countries. German Chancellor was in the U.S. yesterday. What's the reaction to any of these meetings, whether it be France meeting with Putin or with Germany and Biden?
Skepticism, because you brought up two countries, France and Germany, and those are two of the major havens where Russian oligarchs have their business and financial interests offshore their billions of dollars. And so the real question is, will France and Germany sell Ukraine out? Will Germany and France be pressured into essentially blackmailing Ukraine into a number of concessions, such as officially granting full autonomous status to Luhansk and the Donetsk regions, which Russia occupies? Are they going to be forced to essentially give up a lot for Russia to give up nothing but to stop, but to stop menacing their country, which many Ukrainians feel they should be sanctioned for off the bat?
And what's the dog for the U.S. in this fight? Is it, as Biden says, that maintaining the liberal international order, that no country can just take over the borders of another? And I'll note that back in 2014, Russia did expand its borders by taking over the Crimean Peninsula.
Yeah, absolutely true. And so with Biden, I think in my view, Biden is doing a very good job in regards to diplomacy and giving Russian President Vladimir Putin every opportunity to handle this diplomatically. And so, again, it goes back to the fact that there are Russian troops that are occupying this country, and they have illegally annexed the Crimea region and created a human rights issue by creating a displacement and an internally displaced person situation where tens of thousands of people have been forced out of Crimea precisely because of this Russian annexation. And going back to your point about really sending a message that Russia cannot just invade another country like it's World War III, I think that's the right signal, because for Americans, for us to really, to give you some context of why we should ultimately care about this, is that there's this presumption that as long as America does not interfere at all, that it will not impact us. But ultimately it will, because we are in a NATO alliance. You can have as many critiques as you want about the NATO alliance, but we are in it. And if you don't want America to be in it, might as well make a clear statement that, hey, pull out, but that's not going to happen. And so if our allies in NATO, their former Warsaw Pact countries, know that Putin could just come in and invade this country and nothing will happen, they'll say, what about us? What about our own futures, and what about our own security?
And let's leave it on that with a quick explanation of why the Nord Stream 2 discussion has been so important, and how that's held Germany back. Has there been some daylight between the United States and Germany on this pipeline with Russia?
Yeah, and so right now the current, the current chancellor, and I just said the new chancellor of Germany arrived in Washington recently to show a united front to say that if Russia does invade, then there will be no Nord Stream 2. Now, it's a bit of a tricky situation, because Germany and much of Europe depends on Russian gas, and Russia can engage in what many people call gas terrorism here, where basically Putin will just shut off the valves, and we're going to. And his real question is very simple: how well can you stay warm without our Russian gas, and how much of a reserve do you have? And so it deals with the larger question of energy security, even in Germany, in regards to what new energy sources is Germany going to come up with, given the fact that you have this person in the Kremlin, in Vladimir Putin, who uses gas politics for political manipulation. But it also goes back to something I'll say very shortly, but it's very important, is that people don't realize that back in 1989, I mean, when I tell people to think about 1989, think about your favorite hip-hop songs or your favorite R&B songs and the groups that are around. You think about Troop, you think about Boy, you think about a number of groups. Will Smith, who was popular back then. Think about the songs happening in 1989. During this time, people in Germany were tearing down that wall, and so in saying that, to say that the Russians were occupying East Germany for decades, and so there's a historical memory there and a genuine fear that this can happen again. So there are a lot of people who are giving strong critiques of Germany in this situation, but they have their own colonization history with Russia to deal with, which makes this issue even more complex.
Always appreciate your insights, Terrell. Folks, Terrell Jermaine Starr, he's a journalist in Kiev right now. We'll check in with you again sometime this week. Thanks for joining us.